Hi guys, thanks for tuning in again. So if you watched my video from last week, it was week 1 of an 18-week contest preparation. So I've decided to do a WBFF show in mid-November, which is in Miami. And there'll be a couple of smaller shows in the lead up to that. So last week I discussed my contest preparation history, my dieting history, and my training programs, and I guess a little bit about how I have been able to improve my metabolism through various reverse dieting programs, and also look at reducing the amount of overall training that I need to do in order to maintain a physique that I'm happy with. Part 2 of that video looks at how I actually prepared for this upcoming program. So I go over the overall rate of loss and what I actually need to do over the 18 weeks, and then how I go about implementing my nutrition and training strategies. So if you haven't watched that, that'll give you a really good insight into where we are kind of heading this week. So I provided my weight and my body fat percentages last week, and this being week 2, I get to tell you about how things went. So sadly, I wasn't able to adhere to my macronutrient targets, which I'm a little bit disappointed at, to be honest. I set myself up for a really good week. My macros aren't unobtainable by any stretch of the imagination. They're fairly achievable. I've done much harder in my life, but I sat down last night and kind of thought about, some of the key reasons why I wasn't able to achieve them. And it's not that they're not realistic, it's just that I've had a really stressful week. And on that topic, I wanted to talk about stress just briefly. So during your contest preparation, and mine included, there are going to be times and weeks that are going to be, busy for you, whether it's that you have a lot on with your work, you might have things going on personally, family things, relationships, friendships, and it all comes back to your ability to manage those circumstances. So there are some things that are going to be out of your control, and how you view them is going to be really important. This being said, I have a couple of things that are completely out of my control at the moment. So for instance, I'm not able to drive at the minute because I don't have a vehicle. My independence is something that has been stressful for me because I can't just get up and go and do what I want to do when I want to do it, which is what I'm used to. So that's a big stressor for me. Now, one of the things that is of concern is how I respond to stress, and unfortunately for me, my stress response is overeating and binge eating, and it's something that I have suffered with for quite a long while, but I've certainly gone out of my way to try and better myself and learn how to change my behaviors, but this is one of those weeks. What I have done is set down a list of all the things that were fixable, or things that I could do to prevent it from happening again this week. And one of the other things was not having a daily structure with how I go about referring to my clients, because things have been really hectic. So I actually spent about an hour on Sunday writing down a clear timetable of when I'm going to do set things for my work. So video recordings, client reports, YouTube, social media. Labelled those out really clearly this week about when I'm actually going to fit those in, and I have put in select times. I've also set times for my training as well. So for the last 6 weeks, I haven't had a set time of when I go in and train. I just go when I'm able to go, because I'm able to get a lift at a certain time. So this week I've tried to set in advance some times, or at least a guide of when I would like to train, similar to what I'm used to, as opposed to just going with the flow. So I really hope that that's going to help. So you can see here, there was a couple of mornings where I've decided I wanted to train in the morning. Previously I've been training anywhere, So I've set some specific times for workouts, and then I set some blocks of time for when I'm actually going to be specifically working. So I've put in, a task here of reports. This is the first thing that I've had to do, which I hadn't done. I couldn't believe it. Like when I lived in Australia, I'd always had a timetable and a schedule, and I just haven't done it since being in the US. So this is something that if you haven't got a schedule or a timetable like this, I would highly encourage you to put something together that gives you direction. So the other thing that I'm going to change this week to my preparation is be a little bit more structured with my nutrition. So as most of you know, I follow flexible dieting. However, I do find that it's a little bit easier when I'm going into a contest prep, and just to make sure that I'm hitting my calories and my macronutrient ratios perfectly, is to have some structure within the day. So this time I'm actually going to plan ahead 3 of my meals. So then I have perhaps 2 meals or 2 snacks that are open. I'm just going to show you how I have set up my meals for the week. And then if you find this useful, you can certainly use the same principles as I am. Okay, so I'm just going to go over with you my meal plan, or the guided flexible dieting. Starting from the top, I'll just run through my total calories. So this week I'm at 1684 calories. I'm not changing my protein this week, that'll stay as is. My fat is exactly the same, but I am going to reduce my carbohydrate down by 10 grams just due to the non-compliance last week. So I have started off by dividing out my protein intake. So most of the training that I've been doing is in the evenings. So I've set my highest protein meal after training, and then I've kind of spread all the remaining protein intake throughout the day. We can have a look at my carbohydrates. So you'll see that they're primarily focused around training. So I've got 40 grams of carbohydrate at my post-workout meal. Then I have 40 grams at the end of the day. Now, the reason I do that is because I work later in the evenings quite often. So I like to leave something up my sleeve so that when I'm working, I'm not fighting the urge to eat something. So that is why there's a higher carbohydrate amount just here. You can see my first meal of the day and my second meal are quite low in carbohydrate, only 5 or 10 grams. And then I usually give myself a reasonably sized lunch. So the foods, I've just literally picked my favorite meals that I'd like to have this week. So starting off in the morning, something really low carb is an egg white omelette. So that's what I will have this week. And my morning tea will be either like a Greek yogurt with some kind of flavoring. It's got to stay pretty low in carbs and fats. And/or a protein smoothie. For lunch, it's a good serving, so I've got 40 grams of carbs to work with and a good amount of protein and fat. So I'm having butter chicken with veggies and rice. Afternoon tea, coming into training, I'm going to give myself a little bit more carbohydrate as I go into that session. I've got Reese's cereal this week, so I'll have Reese's, and I need to have some protein as well. So it's only a half serve of protein, and I'll probably just sprinkle that over my cereal because it's not worth having that in a shake. Dinner, post-workout, again, another large meal here. I need red meat to make sure I meet my iron requirements, so I usually always have red meat at dinner time. I'm going to have pulled pork brisket slider burgers with a side of vegetables, and if I don't feel like the burger, I'll serve that with like a sweet potato mash to get my carbohydrates in. And for dessert, I always know I'm going to want to have this Icon popcorn. It's just delicious. If you haven't tried it, try Icon popcorn flavors. They're unbelievable. So I've set my structure for my weekly meal plan, so hopefully I can better adhere to this now that I have an outline, and then I'll write something completely new for next week, and then I'll just try and stick to that. I'll have those options available for 5 days through the week, and then I'll usually have 2 days where I just completely flexible diet, which is usually the weekends or days when we know we have something on.